Hey, Shalom. I like to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, taught me this truth. Peace and salutations to the Akim preaching this word with truth and sincerity around the four corners. Like Elder Malcolm would be saying, risking their lives and freedom to do so. And the peace and salutations to the Akim and the few Aqua, the true believers of the hopeful elect. And the peace and salutations to the Israelite foreigners, the Israelites that live amongst the heathen, that look like the heathen. Like Elder Malcolm would be saying, peace and salutations, shalom to y'all. I'm just coming back in the spirit and theme of prophecy. And I wanted to speak about Donald Trump and his meeting with the president of El Salvador. I believe the guy's name is Nayib Bukele. So I got a news article that I got from watching whose video? I believe it was GMS Inspiration of the Almighty, Brother Micah Allah out of the West Coast, the LA camp. But I seen it on a couple of other brothers that I can't remember right now. So, it's going down. They coming after all the tribes. You best believe. Like we're in the beginning stages of Jacob's trouble. And the devil coming down with great wrath because he knows that he had but a short time. So I'm going to get the article, hit a couple of precepts, and Lord's willingness to be edifying. Matter of fact, let me get a quick precept. This is the book of Micah, chapter 2, verse 1, and it reads, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand." Yeah, and this is talking about them global elites, because Trump is just a puppet. He does the bidding for the global elites, the international banking families, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Gettys, the DuPonts, the Schicklgrubers, so on and so forth. And you see the heading of Micah 2:1 says, "Woe to oppressors." Those are your oppressors that I just mentioned. They're the one who call the shots. Verse 2, it says, "And they covet fields and take them by violence." And we have evidence of that. We have, we were witness to that. How Trump wanted to make Canada a state of America. How they wanted to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Trump wanted to do that. He's talking about taking over Greenland. So, yeah, the scriptures is 100% accurate, on the money. It says, "And they cover fields and take them by violence, and houses, and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage." You see? So this is what they do. As a matter of fact, I believe the article goes into it, but the media had asked the president of El Salvador if he was going to send back, I forget the guy's name, But there was a guy that was wrongfully persecuted, and he was deported to El Salvador, and he hasn't committed any crimes in El Salvador or America. So, you know, you link this up. You link this up with the UK putting out a decree that you could be jailed up to 2 years for street preaching, and you come away with Jacob's trouble. You know, Esau coming down with great wrath because he knows that he had but a short time. He's going to persecute the men of the Lord. So you have to mentally prepare yourself that you may be jailed, like it tells you in Revelation, the 2nd chapter. You know? You see verse 3, it says, "Therefore thus saith the Lord, Behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil." Yes, so the Lord's going to recompense Esau for all the wickedness that he's doing to the nation of Israel. You know? Anyway, let's get into the article. This is from NPR, National, I believe, People or Public Radio. And it reads, it says, "Homegrowns are next. Trump hopes to deport and jail U.S. citizens abroad." You see? This is the same guy that these stupid Babylonians voted in. And now they're having buyer's remorse, like Apostle Tahar says, buyer's remorse. You know? It says, President Trump says his administration is actively exploring a proposal to detain U.S. citizens and send them to prisons in El Salvador. You see? Because like Elder Malcolm was saying in his earlier lessons, that the only thing standing in between the global elites and the New World Order is the Constitution. And if you have a spiritual eye, they're doing away with the Constitution as we speak. You know, from what I understand, if I remember correctly, Elder Malcolm said that they did away with it in October of 2022 or 2023 or 2024. I believe but it was in October that they October 22nd, 2024. I believe that's when they did away with the Constitution. So, you know, there's not going to be any more due process or anything of that nature. They're just going to ship you to Guantanamo Bay or El Salvador. You see? Did you see what Trump did as soon as he got into office? He sicked ICE on the people. You see? So you got to understand that you're not dealing with a fair person. You know, you're dealing with Esau. Esau doesn't play fair. It says speaking Monday, minutes before a press briefing alongside El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele, Trump could be heard embracing the concept. Yeah, and that, as you can see, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans have to be the children of the Most High. Have to be children of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. I say that because I say that because we're being represented by our enemies. You see, Nayib Bukele, he's not a Salvadorian. He's from what I understand, I believe he's a Palestinian or some type of Arab of that nature. He's a foreigner. He's a heathen. You know, just like the president of Mexico I looked up the lady's name. I believe her name was Claudia Sheinbaum or Claudia Pardo. Sheinbaum Pardo, and she's a so-called small hat. You see, so we're not being represented by our own people because we're under the curses. You know, we're still in there. We're still found in the captor's hand. It says. It says the homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You've got to build about 5 more places, Trump said to Bukele, an apparent reference to prison space that would be needed in El Salvador to house U.S. citizens. You see, so he's definitely coming after you northern tribes, and he's coming after the northern kingdom, and the southern kingdom isn't out of harm's way either, because you know Israel gets it first, but Judah gets it the worst. So you know that's coming next. It says Salakia. It says El Salvador is already holding hundreds of people in a maximum security prison. They were flown from the U.S. in recent weeks after being detained for allegedly lacking legal status or having gang affiliations. Critics say many of those individuals were deported with limited or no due process, some in defiance of court orders by U.S. judges. You see? So Trump is just overriding the Constitution. You know? I believe that's in the amendment, your right to due process. But he's saying to hell with all of that. He's basically doing what he wants when he wants to. You know? He's single-handedly crippling America and bringing America down. Oh, hold on, let me cross this street. Yeah, so matter of fact, let me get a quick precept. This is Psalms, the 10th chapter, and it reads, and you see the subheading, a prayer for the overthrow of the wicked. And this is the 10th chapter and the 2nd verse, and it reads, the wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor, let them be taken in the devices they have imagined. You see? And one of the devices that they have imagined is this deportation. You know? They want to make it extremely hard for the Americans, but mainly the children of Israel. That's why I say this is the beginning of Jacob's trouble, because they're not targeting no Moabites that came over here. They're not targeting any Elamites that came over here, no doodoo-eating Africans, Hamites that came over here, you know. No They're not targeting any other so-called white people that came over here, because you best believe a whole influx, a plethora of immigrants came over here while under the Biden administration. So it's not just the northern kingdom that came over here, and the southern and parts of the southern kingdom like Haiti. You know, but that's who they're targeting. They're targeting the northern and southern kingdom because Esau has that perpetual hatred. He's disguised it for long enough, and now he's coming full force with it. It says, "For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after the Most High. The Most High is not in all his thoughts." Yeah, and this is speaking about Esau. He's not. Esau doesn't have a spiritual bone in his body. You know. He's not thinking about the Heavenly Father and His will and His law, statutes, and commandments. Even though when the president is sworn in, he's supposed to swear in on the Bible. And if you paid attention, President Donald Trump, he didn't put his hand on the Bible when he was sworn in. So that just goes to show you that left-handed energy is present. You know? It says, "His ways are grievous, thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them." And this is speaking about nobody other than the wicked, which is Esau, the so-called white man. Verse 6, it says, "He hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity." This is what Esau says. "His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity." Here's the point. "He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages, and in secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor." Yeah, the innocent and the poor are code words for the children of Israel. And this is what he does. With his police force, this is what he does with ICE. They sit in lurking places waiting for Jake to show himself. Probably trying to go to work or go to the store. To this day, ICE is still deporting people from different cities in America. Verse 9, it says, "He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. He doth catch the poor when he draweth him into his net." Yeah, you see, so Esau is a trip, man. Esau is a fucking trip. Let me read a little bit more. It says, responding to Trump on Monday, Bukele suggested his country is prepared to incarcerate U.S. citizens. "Yeah, we've got space," El Salvador's president said. The proposal has drawn condemnation from some legal scholars who said it would represent an unprecedented encroachment on the civil liberties of U.S. citizens. You see, so they're doing away with the Constitution. You got legal scholars that are saying that this is not constitutional, but they're not dealing with the Constitution because they never considered the Northern Kingdom or the Southern Kingdom, never considered you tribes of Israel. They never considered y'all equal or citizens. They still had on books the 3/5 clause for the Southern Kingdom. You're 3/5 of a human being. Yeah, let's read this. It says it's obviously unconstitutional, obviously illegal. There's no authority in any U.S. law to deport U.S. citizens, and certainly not to imprison them in a foreign country, says David Beer of the Cato Institute, a libertarian that think tank based in Washington D.C. Damn pop-ups. Says the problem, of course, is Trump already has illegally deported hundreds of people by just not giving the courts an opportunity to stop him. Beer added, I think that's the real fear. Now that he is going to try to evade judicial review of deportations of U.S. citizens. You know, and they're trying to come up with the clause that these guys are in gangs, but the biggest gang is the U.S. government, you know, the Alphabet Boys. That's the biggest gang. We get a couple more precepts. Shut this down. There's the book of Psalms, chapter 17, verse 13. And it reads, Arise, O Lord, and disappoint him. Cast him down. Deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. It says, from men, and you know the Lord's sword is Esau. From men which are thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world which have their portion in this life, talking about the Edomites, and whose belly thou fillest with thy hid treasure. They are full of children and leave the rest of their substance to their babes. This is what Edomites do. They steal land, they steal your heritage, take your land, take your woman, take your resources, and after that, and after they do that, they leave it to their children. So you got a lot of Edomites on stolen property. You know, all you gotta do is look up the Homestead Act of I believe 1862. All you gotta do is look up different different acts, and it's right there. I forget at the moment. There's another one, but I forget the name of it. But yeah, when Esau came to America, he basically committed genocide on Gad and Reuben and Issachar, Northern Kingdom, enslaved them, and took their land and gave it to white settlers, to so-called white settlers. You see, this is all documented history. So now when you see natural disasters happening in the Midwest and yeah, in the Midwest and the North countries and the northern states, you shouldn't feel bad, because it says recompense for them and their how would you say? It says recompense for them and their heinous acts that they committed. You know, I was watching there's a guy that the guy that everybody is raving about, Shahid Bolson. You can see him on his YouTube handle that he's on, is called Middle Nation, and he said something that is prolific, that makes a lot of sense. He said that, you know, the Edomites, he said if you inherited a house that was stolen, and you say, well, that wasn't me, that was in the past, then you're complicit in the problem, because the theft is ongoing. You know, so a lot of these Edomites, they're sitting on stolen land. You know, they have their white privilege, and they're saying that I didn't do that. That was my forefathers. When they don't understand reincarnation, that you are your forefathers. You see? So the crime is still ongoing. Let me get one more. Because ultimately, this is just the start of Jacob's trouble. This is the book of Revelation chapter 12, verse 12, and it reads, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." You see? So the devil knows that he got a short time to rule, so he's trying to pull out all the stops in the playbook, you know? He's pulling out all the trick plays. Salakia. This is the book of Jeremiah chapter 30, verse, I start at 6. It says, "Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child." So basically, does a man give birth to babies? And the answer is, of course, no. But wherefore do I see every man with his hand on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces turned into paleness? That's what you're going to see during Jacob's trouble. You know? Men, if men are going to be like this, then how much more you females? You know, coming with all of this independent woman bullshit and strong woman bullshit. You know, that's that. You females are going to learn the hard way that you're going to need a man, and not just any man. You're going to need a man of the Lord in that day of distress and calamity. Verse 7, "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it." You see? And he that's going to be saved out of it is the hopeful elect. Lord, will I be part of that number? You know? So I'm just blowing the trumpet, showing you that Esau is being the devil, still being the devil, Trump being the devil, and just continue to watch and pray. So Lord's will, you is edified. Till next time, I'm going to say shalom to the elect.